learn Torah. So we're on Daf Chaf Zayin, Sechet Rosh Hashanah. Shir tonight. Next week, I think we're meant to have a shir on Monday, back on Monday. And then we'll have a shir hopefully on Shavuot as well on the second day, Sarminik, Shabbos afternoon. It'll likely be 2 slots before Mincha because Moshe Simkovich, Rabbi Simkovich, is going to give a shir before Mincha. There's a yurtzeit, wanted to give a shir, so great. But I didn't want to forego the possibility of Shavuot, Matan Torah, we should learn. So we will do that. We're on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Bet, just to review. We're talking about various things that can happen to the shofar and ways they can be repaired. I had an idea to do the Tosfot on Chav Zayin Amud Bet, but I skipped the idea. Why? Because we have to learn more things. They come back to hear it, pardon the pun, but to hear it in a different light. They hear it in a different way. So join me on Chav Zayin Amud Bet. We've already seen a number of lines. In fact, most of the page we've already seen, and we're actually toward the bottom of the page. L'toch habor, l'toch hadut. You see where that is? Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. So
I'm sorry,
we're on page Chav Zayin Amud Bet.
Right. Oh.
Chav Zayin Amud Bet. Not at the top, just from the bottom, 2, 4, 6, 7 lines up from the bottom. We'll learn a little Gemara, and then there is a Tosfot I want to see. We've seen this already, right? You're blowing shofar into a either a pit, like a cave type thing, or into some kind of a structure that's mostly underground and partially above ground. The pitas is some kind of a massive barrel or vat, usually like it'd be, I guess, a barrel, but not like a barrel in a wine cellar, but like a barrel in a vineyard. And that you see in Zichron Yaakov or something. If you go in there, indoors, they show it to you. So if you blow into that, we saw already in the Mishnah, which is really on the top of the page. So it depends what you heard. Im kol shofar yatsa shama yatsa. Im kol avar shama lo yatsa. Yeah. So it depends what you heard. Is what's going to be. So Amar Rav Huna lo shanu ella laotan omdim al sfat habor. Al laotan omdim babor yatsu. If you're actually inside the bore, you're going to be yotze. That's interesting because I thought the problem was the echo. So it seems that people are outside. They're not sure what they're hearing because the sound is being blown into the pit, and you're not sure when it's echoing back if you're hearing the sound of the shofar, which is projected elsewhere, or the echo of it. Question?
Are you talking about the Baltic inside?
The Baltic, so that's what he's saying. When we're talking about if you heard the right sound, you're yotze. If you heard the wrong sound, you're not yotze. Wrong sound being the echo. That's the part talking about somebody who's on the edge of the pit, outside of it. To hear it. But if we're getting to the Baltic in a minute. But if you're the one who's inside and you're hearing the shofar that's being sounded inside, so then that you're inside and you hear it there, that would be okay. It's being blown into the bore would be good enough, right? It's the people who are Chav Zayin Amud Bet, or toward the bottom. If you're in the pit, yatsu. Tani nami hachi. Along the same lines, we have another bright atukel tochabor otochadut yatsa. I have here a bor and dut. What's missing? The pitas is missing. Interesting, right? Yatsa.
It says luto, not bato.
The Baal Tukea is, for these purposes, outside. Oh! Bruchim habayim. I missed it. He came back at the beginning of the week, probably. I didn't see him. I was like, whoa, Bruchim habayim. We saved a seat for you. Page 27b. Let's go. The return of Benny Benjamin. What?
Luto.
That was Francie's question. Is the Baal Tukea inside or outside? Outside. You're blowing into it from outside. So Rav Huna started by saying, look, we're talking about the people who are on the edge of the pit, standing next to the Baal Tukea, and he's blowing into this cave or this pit. So the people outside don't know what they're hearing because the sound is projected elsewhere and it's maybe just the echo. If they heard the original sound of the shofar, good. If they heard the echo, not good. But, says Rav Huna, the people inside the pit who hear it, they're yotze automatically. Even don't worry about it. They'll know that they're hearing the shofar. Now, how do they know? But that's Rav Huna's contention. That's what he thinks. Yeah.
Can you just clarify, when you say there's a difference between the edge of the pit or actually in the pit?
Yeah.
So
The person, the Baltic standing outside,
so he's not
holding
on
a
the edge of
shofar.
the pit. He's in the pit.
No. He's outside.
Outside.
Is there people standing next to him at the edge of the crater?
That's the pit.
The pit is ahead. They're all the whole community
So
went for tashlich and they combo tashlich into a pit
Okay,
and
now
blowing shofar. So they're all standing outside.
But said initially he's in the pit.
No, that's coming up. That's the next. Sorry,
Okay,
I
fine.
misspoke. That's coming up next with the Baal Tokeh is inside. Now we're talking about where he seems to be outside. So the point is, and Rashi writes this, Dibur HaMatchil Otan HaOmdim Babor Yatsu Shen Kol Shofar Olam Shamu. They definitely heard the sound of the shofar. Don't you worry. Yeah, they were talking the shaila here of the Mishnah of you. What did they hear? What did they not hear? That's just talking about the people on the edge of the pit. But in the pit, they're good. They're good to go in the bore.
He's blowing into the pit. They're hearing directly what he blew in. I mean, I don't see if there's any
Well,
question.
okay. So the question is there an echo within the pit that becomes distortion on the original kol shofar, or not? So that seems to be the question.
That's the problem.
And Tani Nami Hachi for the bottom,
Because if there's an echo, he wouldn't be Yotze.
then it will be Yotze, not Yotze to call Havara.
But what would you think? Why would there be any more of an echo for people who are standing in the pit than for people who are standing in an ordinary room? I mean, if there's
An
nothing,
ordinary room doesn't engender echoes.
I know, but
In the
if-
same
if-
way.
If there's nothing between the Baal Tokeya and the person who's listening, in order to interrupt the sound, it seems to me pashut that there shouldn't be any problem. But
The point is that the sound is being projected outside of the place where they all are.
yeah, but they're hearing it before it gets projected. All right, let's keep.
Well, yes and no. Why would you be a tokel habor? By the way, is in a shot sakana. You don't want too many people to hear it. You just want it to be audible. So if everyone's standing outside, but they're blowing it into another space. Listen, this happened in our lifetime in the last few years at Congregation or Torah and congregations like it around the world. You stood at the doorway
Yeah.
of the building and you blew shofar. Now it's the outside, so nobody claims you're gonna have a kol havara. It's towards an open space. But it's not impossible. There could be a circumstance, someone's standing in one room and they're blowing it to some other area outside. That's what the Tocha Bor seems to be, that you didn't want the sound to be too loud, something like that. So the question is, well, what did you hear? When you heard the sound, presumably, even though you're standing next to the Baal Tokea, but the opening of the shofar, the wide end, the Tzad Rachav, faces toward another space. So it's creating it's called an echo chamber. That's why they call it that. As opposed to it first reaching everybody in the room. It's aimed outward. You could devise a case. The Baal Tokea is standing ahead of everybody else, standing at the edge of the pit. Everybody's 2 steps behind them. So now they're not sure. What are they hearing? Because the sound of the shofar is going in and coming out. Let's say it's not such a huge bore. Let's say it's a large walk-in pantry. So now he's blowing into it. So it's coming back out, but it's the aim of it is not where the people are in their room. It's towards something else. So they're not sure what they're hearing. But if people are inside, they're going to hear clearly. That's Rav Huna's contention. So it's just notable. It didn't mention the pitas. So I think the Rambam ignores that third clause and thinks that that's maybe a different circumstance because it's some kind of a barrel. So because of the way that it's made, it will have more of a problem of an echo. Anyway, v'hatnan lo yotza, but I thought we said you're not yotze. So elav shmamina kid Rav Huna shmamina. It must be like Rav Huna said that what we're really talking about here, yotza lo yotza, is the distinction between are the people with the Baal Tokea outside and it's blowing in, or are the people who are listening already inside? So ikadarami lahu mirma, yeah. So there are those who found like a little contradiction over here that they really were trying to understand what's happening here. Look at Rashi. Yesh Talmidim.
Mirma means
Yeah, like Rami who Mirma mean be like they found a contrast, a difficulty, but it usually the purpose of finding some inconsistency. Look at Rashi. He tells you Yeshlim she'ein shonin lahad Rav Huna be'inyan lo shanu lefrushim matnitin Ela Ramu Mirma Matnitin, Ubraita Hadade, Va'alakai Rav Huna Umashane. Some saw a tension between what you have in the Mishnah and what you have in these Braitot. Some of the Braitot seem to say, oh, the Tocha Bor, the Tocha Hadut, you're Yotze. But the Mishnah said it depended. So no, along came Rav Huna to clarify it's in two different places that the listeners are standing. Outside on the edge, then you need to know what you're hearing. Inside, and it's aimed toward the inside, then it's good automatically. It's not. So that's they're quoting it again. So the one who blows into the bore or into the dut, the structure again mostly underground. Lo yatsa v'atan yatsa. Didn't we say it's yotze? Amar Rav Huna lo kashya. Kan letoch leotan ha'omdin al sfata bor. Kan leotan omdim babor. It's outside versus inside, and that's the resolution. Yeah. I'll say just as we're moving to the next section here, there is if you've been paying attention, which I'm sure you have, there's a lot of overlap here of the quotation of Braitot and the repetition of them, and this is interesting. Different parts of Shas, the editing of it is a little bit different. So here you'll see an example now. We're going to go back. You're going to feel like we already read this already. We had the sugya previously. Yeah, it's another aspect of the sugya, but it ends up quoting from the previous sugya that we already saw as a proof text to what it wants to say. And that's the bottom, the last word, last two words. Amar Rabba, top of the next daf, Chavchet Amar Aleph, Shama miktzat kia babor, umiktzat kia al sfata bor yatsa. If you heard part of it in the bore and part of it out of the bore, what does it remind you of? Remember? We had this case with the trumpets, the chatzotzrot, and the shofar. It's the only hearing part. We had the opposite case, which is the Baal Tekiah, Shvar and Trua, Tekiah, extra long Tekiah, and then wants to blow now Shvar and Trua without a second Tekiah, claiming that extremely elongated Tekiah at the end of the set is the beginning of the next line. And we said it's not good. You have to hear the whole thing, and you can't split it in the middle, and you can't make a composite. So what do you mean you heard part inside and part outside? How did that even happen? Yeah. So how does that that even work? Right? So Rashi has to give us more of the case because frankly it's a little confusing. Yeah. And we need to go to Bach here, so we'll read slowly. It's top at the top Rashi. Yeah.
Good, before you go on.
Oh, sorry.
The Tanya Nani Hachi, what is that adding?
Each time it says Tanya Nami Hachi, we also learned this in a Braita that supports it.
So all that is a Braita, which is just reinforcing that case?
Right.
Okay.
That's what I was alluding to when I said to you just a moment ago. There's an element here in these pages of the Shas. I've found when I come back to them, there's like a layering. Oh, and also it says here and there, it doesn't tell you the source. So okay, so there's another source. Like you said it already. So we tell me
offering a third case.
No. Tan Namiach is also bright along these lines. Got a little more, yeah. So back, let me say again. The Gemara, two last words on Chav Zayin Mebet. Amaraba, Shama mikzat kia babor, umikzat kia al sfata bor, yatsa. Let me, right? I'll say the second line as well. Second clause, and this will be, of course, the discussion. Second clause and the first clause don't seem to add up together. Mikzat tekiya kodem shiyala amud shachar, umikzat tekiya la'achar shiyala amud shachar lo yatsa. So if you heard part of tekiya in the bore, part of tekiya out on the edge of the bore, you're yotze. But if you heard part of the tekiya before alod hashachar, amud hashachar, and part of it after, you're not yotze. So Abai is going to ask Rabbah, why in one case you're yotze and one not? The point is half is kosher, half is not. But we need to, now we're going back to Rashi, which was going to do a moment ago. Rashi, top of the page. What is the case? What do you mean mixat tekiya babor betoch? Who's getting in and out of the bore? And Rashi tells you the case. We need to hear, see the case. Kasal kadaitach dehachi ka'amar. This is our initial opinion about what's happening here, about what this shita of Rabbah might be. Hayomedhu bisfata bor, v'chaveo tekea babor. The case here, Rabbah's case, not what we had before. The person was standing on the edge of the pit. Their friend was standing inside the pit. V'yatza lachutz, and they went outside. They left and here the box says v'yotze lachutz, right? Yatsa b'chatzi hatakia v'ashmin hacha the biktsat nami yotze.
Where's the Baltic in this case?
He starts inside the bore,
It's
and the case is that he got out in the middle.
Oh.
Right. That's to Francie's point from before. What, really?
So it's the Baltokea who's climbing out, not.
That's that's Rashi's understanding of what's happening in this Gemara. That he was inside, the Baltike was inside. The person who's listening was standing on the edge, so he heard the sound from inside the pit to outside. So you don't have a kol havara problem
No.
necessarily.
Why would it be any different whether it's the Baltikea who's half and half or the Shomea who's half and half? Can word it both ways.
Well, Rashi seems to have a Masorah that this is the it's going in this sequence. We'll go in the other sequence after.
Rashi.
No, I'm just telling you.
But I'm saying in terms of understanding of the case, it would seem that it could be either the Shomea or the Baltikea who's half and half.
Well,
Maybe a different.
hold on. No, well, hold on. If it was the other way, then we said before, if you're standing inside the pit and you heard the sound of the shofar, and the shofar was the guy was standing outside, so you're yotze no matter what. We said that already. But if you're standing on the edge, then it depends. You hear the sound of the tekiah or you heard the kol havara. So that would be a problem over there, right? Did you hear the sound or did you hear the echo? But here, what the case that Rashi brings, Rashi's understanding of the Gemara, kasal kadaitach, that's our understanding, is that this is the case. The person who is the listener is standing on the edge of the pit. His friend is sending the shofar inside the pit, and he gets out in the middle of blowing shofar. He's doing a tekiah, and he's climbing out of the pit. The stairs, he's walking up out of the mikvah staircase. He's closed, but he's walking. It's an empty mikvah. He's walking up out of it, blowing the shofar, a procession, and the guy standing outside. So he heard the beginning when it was inside. He was always standing outside, and now the guy came out and he heard the other half. And the Gemara here says, Yatsa. But wait a minute. What did he hear when he's standing on the edge of the pit when the guy was blowing a shofar inside? We don't know. And if he heard an echo, that shouldn't be kosher. So first half wasn't kosher, second half was kosher. So then why in your second case did you say if you heard the first half was that was before Amud HaShachar not kosher, and if you heard the second half after Amud HaShachar, it is kosher? Questions, comments, Ira first, and then we'll go around because people didn't have a chance yet. Please.
Pete, where it says Kia Kodem Shiala Mura Shachar. If it says okay, Al Svata Bor Yatsa, he's Yotze. And then it says Miktat Kiat Kodem Shiala Mura Shachar. What is that? What is that? What is that?
Hold on. Do it again. Shama Miktat Kia Babor, Miktat Kia Al Svata Bor Yatsa. Period.
Right.
Case 2. Miktat Kia Kodem Shiala Amud HaShachar is, Amud HaShachar is at 5:52. So at 5:51 and 30 seconds, the guy started blowing a shofar. And he went for a minute and a half. He's a tekiah gedola. I don't know.
Okay.
So now he only heard half. A mix of tekiah la'achat shalom and shachar. And Rabbah says lo yatsa. So Abaye says to him, Amar le Abaye, 4 lines down in the Gemara, Maishna hatan de ba'ina kula tekiah b'chiyuva v'leka. Zachanami ba'ina kula tekiah b'chiyuva v'leka.
The two cases are different because
Hold on, wait. Say.
the case of before and after Amud HaShachar, half of it he's definitely not Yotze. The case where he heard half of it from the board, there's a suffix. So in one case it's suffix versus half Yotze. In the other case it's definitely not, but both bad.
Good. You wanted to say it the same way?
I'd argue with
You're saying the cases are different. One's a difference in space,
Space.
and the other one is a difference
In time. And the time is inelastic, so you're in or you're out.
Up until now, we've never covered the case where the Baal Tokea is inside the board for the whole thing.
Yeah.
In other words, the half that we're
That's
worrying about in this case,
Right.
we never covered what happens if that's the entire time. We don't know.
The assumption is if he's in there the whole time, whoever's inside is going to hear it and outside not. I don't know. Wait, Larry and then Francie, please.
I would argue with you and Benny, by the way, that there is an assumption in the Gemara that in is good, out is bad, period.
There is?
I think there is.
No, look at that. No, love
It's the opposite.
Hold on. I want to hear.
The opposite. I got it wrong.
Oh, out is bad, in is good. But
Whether it's in or out.
hold on, but the Mishnah itself was clarified based on Rav Huna
Yes.
as saying, "What did you hear?" When is that question a real question? When you're outside listening to whatever's going on, projected inside, or I would say, by the way, even coming from inside.
Really?
For now, I'll modify it soon, but
Okay, 'cause
at least for these purposes. And therefore, there's a shaila when you're outside al sfat bor. What did you hear that was coming from outside the bor versus inside the bor? Is it the actual sound? Is it a kol avara? But here, this case is we still have two people. This is the case here, according to Rashi. The friend is one guy standing on the edge, and the friend is inside with the shofar, and he's blowing the shofar, and he's coming up out of it. So the first part is a suffix. The second part would be a vadai.
Why do you say it's a suffix?
Is the person outside who's standing al sfat habor hearing the kol shofar or the kol havar? That was the Mishnah on Chav Zayin and Bet.
But the ruling is he's not Yotze.
No, that's
No.
not the ruling.
Hold on, let me. He's asking me. The look at the ruling on line 3 on Chav Zayin and Bet. Right, line 3. Im kol shofar shama yatsa. Im kol havar yatsa avar shama lo yatsa. That's the din.
Right.
And then the Gemara clarifies that that's not talking about people who are inside the pit. All those people are automatically going to be Yotze. Who's it talking about? The people who are on the outside listening in. And what are they listening to? To the sound of the shofar that may have been somehow adulterated, modified, distorted, whatever word you want to use, by the structure that the sound waves are bouncing off of to come back out. So that case is not the top of Chav Chet Amud Aleph, which is where the Baal Tekeah started inside and came to outside. I like the time-space definition because that's actually what happens next in the Gemara. It's what Abaye asked Rabbah, and Rabbah says, I'll tell you the distinction. When I said about before Amud Shachar, after Amud Shachar, there's no chiyuv. He did it in terms of chiyuv. Since there's no chiyuv to blow shofar before that time, it doesn't count. It's like it's a zero. You auditorily heard something, but there's no chiyuv. And this other case, the first case that I brought, maybe you were Makayim the mitzvah. It just will depend when you were standing outside listening to the sound of the shofar. Did you hear the shofar or did you hear a kol havara? And that could be mitzaref with the sound of the shofar that is heard by the friend standing outside when he comes up the steps and he comes out of the cellar. That's all.
Yeah, basically,
I think it was in the ballpark. I wouldn't go farther than that. But okay, but look at again. Rashi, Kasak Adaita, Tahachika Amar. This is the understanding that this is what the Gemara, what Rabbah is trying to say. Haya omed hu bisfat habor v'chavero tekea babor. And the Haggadah Bachar tells you v'yotze lechutz, right? Yatza b'chatzi tehatkia v'ashmin hacha debiktzat nami yotze. And it sounds like what the guy outside heard, according to the Hava Amina, is he only heard half of the tkiya, the second half. The guy was blowing before, but since he was standing Sfat Abor, let's say he really was hearing a kol havara. But as he came out, now the sound was clarified, he heard a chatzi tkiya. I'm saying again, we already saw this sugya with the half and half, and it's about to be repeated in longhand. But let's get there in this case. Are you with me? Are you with me? Yeah, Francis. Sorry, I didn't get your question before.
That's okay. I'm confused to the point. I understand inside, outside,
Yeah.
where is he? And all of a sudden you're talking about Amar Shachar. You know,
Oh, okay. The Amud Shachar piece, great question. The Amud Shachar piece, we have two statements from Rabbah, and they just happen to come together. But what unites them is it's the splitting of one sound of a shofar, either in time, before there's a chiyuv, after there's a chiyuv, but the guy started blowing before. Yeah, but I heard enough, after Amud Shachar. Yeah, but you didn't hear the whole thing. You only heard the second half. And we don't make cuts in the middle of the shofar. You either heard it or you didn't. So it got messed up. How come? Because the Tkiyat shofar didn't start at the time of chiyuv. It started before the time of chiyuv. So you can't make an arbitrary line and say, well, half didn't count, half did count. You have to say something's wrong with this Tkiyah. It's no go. That's inelastic. The question here is, the person started the Tkiyat shofar standing inside. He's blowing it for a guy standing outside. So hold on. The guy outside, we saw in the Mishnah, based on Rav Huna, his understanding of the Mishnah, when you're outside, what did you hear? If you heard the kol shofar, then when he comes out, it'll be good. Because the kol shofar, and then he came out, and now it's not Mitoch habor, he came out of the bor. So now you heard the first half, he heard shofar, but it was farther away. Second half, it was closer in. But the fact that these two statements are right next to each other leads Abaye to ask Uncle Rabba, I don't know, it was his uncle, I don't understand. Why is it that the first statement you said, if the guy's inside, he comes out, lo yatsa? Sorry, yatsa. But if it's straddling the line, this line in time of before there's a chiyuv, and when the chiyuv starts, you said lo yatsa. You're so categorical about it. That's why the second statement's there. It's another example of this one sound cut in half. But the distinction is going to be one of them is in space, the other one is in time. One of them, the second one, everybody agrees. There's no chiyuv to blow shofar before Amud Shachar. You're not doing anything. But there is a machloket, or at least a suffix, about what's happening when you're hearing a sound that's coming out of a bore when you're standing on the edge of that bore.
I don't understand. You said you can't cut the sound. What about the case of the chatzot throat that were blowing contemporaneously?
True.
And then there was the call of the shofar at
Yes.
the end.
Yes. So simultaneous to the sound of the chatzot throat was the sound of the shofar. You remember we said at Rosh Hashanah the shofar sound is going to go long and the chatzot throat will go down. So initially the Gemara was struggling with exactly that issue. That was about Trekale Lo Mishtame. Remember that sugya? What we concluded with, which was a really wow. I was myself reminding myself like, wow, people love the sound of the shofar. And therefore, even though at the beginning there's some kind of a polyphonic, right, experience, multiple voices, people will focus on the shofar from the beginning. And the fact that a chatzitzora there as accompaniment will not distract them. That was the answer. The answer was it's not two sounds. And the two chatzitzora are not distortion. They're accompaniment. My language, not the Gemara's. But the point is you'll make out the sound of the shofar and you'll focus on it. Because everyone loves the shofar. That's what it said. Chibuv a mitzvah.
It's a mitzvah of the day.
Well, it's a mitzvah of the day, and that. Well, hold on. The chibuv, right? What is the chibuv ha-mitzvah? What is the chibuv ha-mitzvah? It's that it's the mitzvah of the day, and it's a kiyum, and that right. And then we had the new Moshe Ibn Chajiz and the Yom Trua, who was asking the question. Well, what does that mean? We just love the music. No, it's that this means that it's for zikaron and it's zichronot and it's to remind the Kodesh Baruch of the Akedah. So if we can hear it, we know Hashem obviously always hears it, but it means that the zichuyot of the day will fall upon us of zichronot and we'll have a much better the psak the din of a Kodesh Baruch Hu will be barachamim because barachamim tizkor. The sound of the Akedah, is a
In
shofar.
order to be the kind of the mitzvah of the day, you had to have the extra piece alone of the shofar without the chatzot throat.
You didn't have to. That was the syntax and the protocol for what they did. But it was not because the two sounds of the chatzot throat were interrupting it. And you needed it to be by itself so that you could be kind of mitzvah of shofar. That is not what we concluded. We concluded that was the whole thing. The fact that we went out of its way to say the shofar has to go long made it sound like, well, because of course you can't hear it when the chatzot throat are going. So you just make it go longer. But no, in the end it said, no, that's just a protocol issue. But don't worry, everybody's focused on the sound of the shofar.
Why the protocol?
That's already going down the rabbit hole to our old share. It's recorded. I don't want to take me too far afield, but that was the protocol. Yeah,
Just
the victims.
when the Gemara references Shaya Aleh Amud Shachar, why doesn't the Gemara ever talk about Lila? Doesn't say it's so it doesn't say
It means that it's on the line. The point is that it's on the line between night and day.
Night.
But that's the point. That's the point. That's the point. That's the point.
Just asking why does the Gemara actually reference Lila?
The word Lila,
Yeah.
because it is Lila, but because the point is actually Kodem Shiyala Amadu Shamans. We're so close. I mean, who cares? What's the difference of 2-3 seconds, 30 seconds? It's morning. No. The Gemara says no. Don't. You cannot make such an argument. There's a line, and if you're before the line, say you're not Yotze.
Okay.
You have nice intentions to see a feb.
Oh, sorry, 4:51.5.
Yeah, it doesn't work. You have to wait for the time. That's the precision in halachas. We try where we can, I should say, where there aren't too many competing issues. Which let's not go down that rabbit hole. But But we do try. We try. Certainly a mitzvah deoraita. It's likuva. You can't. So how could you play with that? Let's do it again. I'm making a lane again just to see it as a picture, just of the Gemara. So again, Amaraba Shama Mixat Kia Babor Mixat Kia Al Svadabor Yatsa. Mixat Kia Kodam Al Mishachar Mixat Kia La'achal Shial Al Mishachar Lo Yatsa. Samar Le Abaye said to Rabba, Maishna Hatan de Beina Kulat Kia Bechiyuva Veleka. Hachanami, but in a kula tkiya bichiyu vileka. What did you say that you require in the second case? You have to have the whole thing at a time of chiyuv, and you didn't get there. So the first case wasn't in a place of chiyuv, or at least it was a suffix because the sound is inside and the fellow is standing outside. Hachi hasta, hatam. Are you going to compare the two things? Yeah, you found your word lila there. Ira. Hachi hasta, hatam lila min chiyuvahu. Klal. There is no chiyuv whatsoever at night. Hacha, but in our case, meaning the first case, which is really the case we were talking about, the topic, the room we're in has a sign at the top. This room discusses the issue of tekel, tocha bor, tocha du, tocha pitas. So now we're asking. So hacha bor makom chiyuvahu laotan haomdin babor. It is a makom chiyuv for the people who are inside the bor. Yeah. Lememra de sava rabba. Shama sof tkiya below tchilat tkiya yatsa? Does that mean to say that Rabbah thinks that if you heard the end of a tkiya without the beginning of it, you'd be yotze?
No.
Umemela tchilat tkiya below sof tkiya yetze? Do we think that? No. Again, you saw this Gemara already. It's a cut and paste from earlier, right? Tashma taka barishona umashach b'shniya kishtayim ein b'yoda ela achat. V'amai. You heard the first line again. Tkiya is from Shua. Tekiya, and the fellow did a double header. And then the guy said Tekiya again. Do a Shram Trua. Why? Because I did a long Tekiya. It's two. No. Why? Why won't you be Yotze? Why do you only say that's one long one? Tisalek la betarte. Why can't you say it's two? There's an extra long one. Psuke Tekiyata mahadade la paskinan. We don't cut Tekiyas in half. The Tekiya is the Tekiya. You need the integrity of the Tekiya from beginning to end. And was interrupted in the middle or started late, as far as the part that was able to be heard. So, you don't say, on that tekiya, you do it again. That's all. Something's messed up. It's not going to work. Right? And that's what Larry just reminded us about the tekiya of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah going longer than the two chatzotzot. The resolution was, no, they can make out the sound, so it's not going to be a problem. Trekale, v'chule. Tashma, hatikela tocha bor, olo tocha dut, olo tocha pitas, im kol shofar shama, yatsa. V'im kol avara shama, lo yatsa. V'amai, leipug, b'tchilat kia mikmei, arvev kala. Why don't you say that really what's the case? The case is, you heard the beginning of the tekiya, it's just the later part of the tekiya got messed up. But the beginning was good. In other words, by rehashing this Gemara again, we're back to square one. How could Rabbah have made some kind of declaration? If you heard part of it in the bor and part of it out of the bor, you'll be yotze, you'll put the two together. Or maybe the part in the bor doesn't count, and only the part outside of the bor counts. No, that would be a cutting it in half, so we're stuck. So the Gemara answers, Ki ka'amar Rabbah bitokeya ve'ola l'nafshe. We're talking about not the friend standing outside on the Sfat HaBor, but the Baal Tokeya is a man in motion. He's in the cistern with the stairs. He starts blowing shofar, and while he's blowing shofar, it's like a musical or something. He comes walking out. He's not being motzi anybody else. He's being motzi himself. Rabbah meant the individual. There's no second person. Solo. He started inside, and then he walked outside. Yeah. So the Gemara says, "Oh, ihachi my lememra." What exactly are you being mechadesh? Remember, we said before, if you're tokeya letocha bor, the people in the bor are yotze. Mm-hmm. So if I'm holding the shofar and I'm in the bor, I'm yotze. Now I'm taking the same shofar, I'm walking up the steps, and I'm out of the cistern, and I'm still blowing the same tekiya. Am I yotze? I'm yotze. We just finished. So you haven't added anything to the story. Mo de tema. So Rabbah, the Gemara has to explain what's Rabbah's chiddush. Mo de tema zimnu demafik reishe vakati shofar babor v'kama arbev kala. You might think that maybe the guy's walking up. I guess the guy's like walking up backwards or something. So he lifts up his head. So his head is outside the bor, but the shofar is still in the bor, and therefore maybe he's not really hearing the right kind of sound. And maybe there's a distortion at that exact moment. Kamash Malan. Kamash Malan. No. If a guy is blowing the shofar himself and he's going from from inside the bore to outside the bore, he'll be Yotze, and that's that.
No matter what.
No matter what. Now, again, it's the same business with the makom, but now it's an even finer distinction because it's the same person going from one spot to another. But the point is, there could be a circumstance, if it's a large enough shofar, where as he's coming up the stairs, he turns around and the last step, he climbs out, but the shofar is still in and he's still blowing. It's theoretical, but I just said it's going up backwards. Yeah, yeah. Look
Where
at.
does this whole case come in? Because before we were talking about people on the board, people on the edge. All of a sudden, we're talking about just the Baltokea.
Yeah, Rabba is making it about the Baltokeh. Now, is the Gemara trying to tighten up what Rabba said? I mean, Rabba didn't say Taka Mitzatkia Babor, but rather Shama Mitzatkia Babor. So it makes it sound like really the listener, not really the person blowing shofar. But the Gemara clarifies he didn't mean Shama, he meant Shama et Kiyato Shel Atzmo. He's the one blowing the shofar. The Gemara says.
That's a stretch.
I'm just telling you what it says. I just deliver the news. I'm not making it up over here. So if you look at Rashi, look at Rashi. Kodam Amud Shachar, Lav Zimnehu. The second to last little wide lines. Lav Zimnehu. Kidamrina Pesach Megillah. Kol Yom Kosher Tekiyat Shofar. You'll have time Yom Trua. Yelachan Yom V'Lo. Has to be day and not night. Has to be day by some definition. By the way, the ideal time is not after Amud Shachar. The ideal time is not at sunrise. It's a little later on in the morning, Musaf time. How come? So we'll get to that Gemara. We didn't see it yet. We're going to get there, right? That there was a problem. There was a massacre, unfortunately, one year because they thought it was a muster. The blue shofar early in the morning, and the reigning government thought that it was a call to arms, and they used it as a pretext. By the way, were they fools? They didn't remember from the year before. So first of all, they could have just arrived there and taken the people prisoner. Secondly, I think we all know what it means when the Ummah Ha'olam make up a pretext, a blood libel. They could pin it on any ridiculous thing. So instead, this we don't blow shofar right in the morning. We do it in. That's why it's in Musaf. We put it a little later. No one would call a muster to a call to arms at 10:30, 11 in the morning. Okay, that's because of Ma'aseh Shahaya. Anyway, back to the what we're learning here. Rashi, third line of the narrow lines. Third line of Hachi Garsinan. Ler the Sava Rava, the Chishama. I didn't remember that actually. There's some girsa. The Rosh had a girsa of Rava. Rashi also had that girsa of Rava. Interesting. Rava and Abaye is not the same as Rabba and Abaye because Rabba was the rabbi and the uncle. But Rava and Abaye are the two Talmidim of Rabba, and they're the two Chavrusas, Bari Plukta. Yeah. So Shema, where am I here? Hachiyasin lememra the Savarav the Chishama Inish Sof Tekiya below Techila Tekiya Yatza Umamela V'chulei. Yeah. Takab Rishona Pshuta Shlifnei Truat Hamalchiot. Right. So if you blew it along with a Masha Bashnia Bipshuta Shel Achareha Kishtayim Nitkaven Latzeit Ba Avde Pshuta Shlifnei Truat Zichronot Shatir Alav Litkoa Techef Lazu. If you try to do that, it's not going to work. We said, right? So im kol shofar shama below kol havara yatsa. Im kol havara shama im kol shofar lo yatsa. Yeah. So now Rashi, these are all smaller little pieces. They're very important, but we already saw them in the text of the Gemara, so I sort of folded them in. But now look at this Rashi over here. B'tokev ol anafshe ve'ein acher imo latzeit bo el tokev olehu. He's the only one doing it. There's no one else who's being yotze. The day, because for himself, tchilata v'sofa behechser. Started in kosher way, it ended in a kosher way. Dibit chila hu v'shofar babor. He and the shofar in the pit. V'amaran le'el, we saw already, oten omni babor yatsu. They're going to be yotze. Yeah, and that's actually how it played out. Yeah. What time is it? 42.
Yeah.
50. We have to see the toast at the bottom of the other page, but I can't go there tonight either. Let's do a little farther in the Gemara. Okay, a few more minutes. So cover a little more ground. Why not? Why not? So, gesund. Amar Rav Yehuda b'shofar sha'ola lo yitka v'im taka yatsa. Shofar sha'ola, it's from a korban. You can use an ola. And somehow something happened here. Rashi points out, what is sha'ola? It's a korban ola, obviously, but the point is, v'talsha mechayim. It was still alive when you took it off. Now, were you allowed to take it off? You did take it off. But the ilu la'achar zrika ein me'ila lo ba'ora v'lo b'karnea she'akol la'kohanim kedamrinu v'menachot uvizvachim. All right. We learned in two different masachtas that once you've done this rikat hadam, I was having this conversation with someone earlier today. We learned this. We know this. We talk about a korban. We're not talking necessarily about the hekter chalav ve'emurim. That comes later. It's part of the korban, but the hakrava of the korban is the four stages: the shchita, kabbalah adam, holacha, and zrika. You did the zrika, sefini, it's done. So once the zrika has happened, then you're going to have parts that are going up on the mizbeach, imurim, pedarim, chalavim. But the other parts of it automatically belong to the kohen, or kohanim. They can do whatever they want with it. It's not part of hekdesh anymore. So, and the derivation is here. Nemar lo yiyeh ba'ola, v'nemar lo yiyeh ba'asham. Ma'asham atzmotav mutarin, af ola atzmoteh mutarin. And for these purposes, the shofar is considered part of the atzamot of the animal. So that much they're going to get. Yeah. So if you had a shofar of ola, you should not use that. But if you did, you're still yotze. Lo yitka v'im taka yotza. But b'shofar shel shlamim lo yitka. V'im taka lo yatsa. If you use a shofar of shlamim, you should not blow shofar with it. But if you did, you would not even be yotze. My time asks the Gemara, and it answers: Ola bat me'ilahi. Ola is subject to me'ila. Me'ila, trespass. When a person accidentally makes use of something that belongs to hekdesh, that's me'ila. By the way, mark this, and it's a strange thing. You might think ab initio, it's like kasher zamam or something. It's like also has its own strangeness. In this context, if you were bemazid, moel, you committed an act of me'ila in the spiritual sense, but not halachically. If you did it bemazid, that's not me'ila. You're not allowed to use hekdesh, but it's not me'ila. Why? Because me'ila has an important after effect. Me'ila's after effect is whatever you moel on goes to chulin. So if you had something that is not going to be subject to me'ila, and shlamim is not, and you now used it improperly, you used something that belonged to hekdesh, but it is not gone out to chulin, and therefore, apparently you're not yotze. Look at Rashi, shlamim lav me'ila ninu, have to stop here, de'ein me'ila b'kodshim kalim, ella be'emurim. There's no me'ila in kodshim kalim. Kodshim kalim, part's going to be offered, part's going to be eaten, and it can even be eaten outside in the precinct of Yerushalayim, right? And there's only me'ila in the kodshim kalim. But the me'ila, ula'achar zrika, kshehuver v'lechelak gavoa. Once you've done the zrika, and the part that's going up for the korban, for to Shemayim, that's going for Hashem, but the rest is yours. So the case here, well, we just lost our participant. Okay, doesn't matter. So right. So the Gemara says, my time ola bat me'ila, back in the Gemara, bat me'ilahi, right? Kevan demal ba nafkala lechulin, went out. Shlamim delabin me'ila nilahu isurahu, right? Derachiv bahu lo nafke lechulin. You're actually making use now of something that is usher. It's not going out to chulin, right? Mm-hmm. So the Rava says, wait a minute, Matifla Rava, Emat Ma, when is the Me'ila happening? Batar to Taka, after you finish being Tokeh, because you got the Hana'ah of having been Mekayim the mitzvah. Kikataka, Bisura Taka. When you did the Tkiya, it was an Isser, but are you still Yotze? You're still Yotze. So Ella Amarava, Echadzeh, Echadzeh, Lo Yatza. Hadar Amar, first he said, no, you're not Yotze in anything here. You cannot use anything that belongs to anything related to Korban. But then he went back on himself, and he said, Echadzeh, Echadzeh, Yatza. And why? Answer, punchline, mitzvot lav lehanot nitnu. Because the mitzvot were not given for enjoyment, and therefore, when you use it, even though you weren't allowed to, but you still yotze, because you didn't get any hana. I have the mitzvah, the hana of hana that I got, the kiyum mitzvah. Nah, that doesn't count. And as Rashi points out here, li Yisrael liot kiyumam, lahem hana, elo le'ol al tzavareim nitnu and it's given as a burden or a yoke, rather, not a burden, but a yoke around our necks. I'm going to have to review this on Monday, but we'll learn, God willing, then. We'll all see that incredible Tosot, Abanu Chavzayin Bet. Everyone have a great mincha.